Welcome to AP Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Al Pilong, CEO of AP Leadership Partners, an executive coaching practice centered around a passion for effective leadership. There are two things I know for sure about leadership. First, leadership is hard. And second, leadership matters. And so my hope today is that through the course of this conversation, you will find fresh ideas and inspiration for your challenging but important leadership journey ahead. Thanks for listening. The AP Leadership Podcast is sponsored by CXO Coaching, an executive coaching firm focused on empowering leaders and driving results. And now, let's get started. In today's episode, we will be focused on leadership qualities and important leadership advice, as well as have some fun with our favorite fictional leadership characters. Today, I'd like to welcome Ed Ness to the show. Ed is President and Chief Executive Officer of Munson Healthcare, which he has led since 2010. Munson is a 7-hospital health system with 8,100 employees and $1.2 billion in annual revenue, serving lower northern Michigan. Ed actually joined Munson in 1999, coming over from Evanston Northwestern Healthcare. He has a bachelor's degree in healthcare finance from Concordia College and an MBA from the University of Minnesota. Welcome to the show, Ed. It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I had the privilege of being part of Munson and part of your team for 6 years, from 2013 to 2019. And I don't know that I've ever told you this, but it was the best job I ever had. Working for Munson was a real highlight of my career. If it wasn't for family pull back to the East Coast, I would still be there. I think the opportunity that you provided for me, your approach to leadership, taught me a lot and made me really the leader that I am today. You gave me the opportunity to try things, to lead, to have responsibility, probably more than I even earned. And you gave me the chance to make mistakes and to grow. And I just want to say publicly, thank you for that.
Thank you for the very nice words.
It has shaped me into the leader that I am today. I wouldn't be where I am without that. So it was a great ride. I miss it every day. Traverse City is an amazing place. But before we get into the content, maybe you could share a little bit about your background that I haven't shared already.
Well, again, thanks for having me. It's fun to see you again. So I grew up in Minnesota, as Al said. I'm a Midwestern person by background, and it probably shapes my leadership style. As we talk about today, I do think your background and your experience shapes your leadership style. And so I certainly am shaped by that. Grew up in a family farm in Minnesota, went to graduate school, and then ended up here in Traverse City. And for those who may not know, Traverse City is in northern Michigan, is a pretty rural area. And so it's kind of some unique circumstances, I think, is a rural health system that shapes how we have to run our system. I had married and had 2 adult children. One lives in Charleston, South Carolina, and one lives about 4 blocks away here in Traverse City. So it's nice to see them. As far as interests, when I'm not working, to live in northern Michigan, and Al probably would know this, having lived here for 6 years, you have to embrace what it is. And so for us, that means embracing skiing and the outdoor activities that comes along with it, and makes the winters go a lot quicker if you just get out and enjoy it. So that's what we love to do as a family.
Yeah. Well, very good. I know we're also both sports fans and often have gone back and forth on our Big Ten teams. You, University of Minnesota, me, Rutgers, rooting our teams on to get out of the basement of the Big Ten standings usually.
Yeah, you were probably always on the good side of the conversation with, especially with the pro teams and Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings. And yet again, this year, you were in the playoffs and we're not. So good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, let's get into a little bit around leadership and from your perspective. You've been in leadership now for how long?
Boy, you have to age me, don't you? So
well, we both have gray hair. Come on, we're not kidding anybody.
So probably 35 years almost.
Okay. So as you think about leadership, from your perspective, what are the most important qualities of a leader?
Yeah. So I was thinking it was kind of fun to step back and think about these things, and preparing for this. I think the first is to be genuine to who you are. We will take personality profiles, and we all have a different style right? Some are extroverted, some are introverted, some are more analytic, are more creative. What I would say is your leadership style should be based on who you are. So be genuine to that. And I remember early in my career, I had someone who had a very different leadership, kind of was a very aggressive, kind of short, kind of just that kind of style. And I said, boy, is this what being a leader means? And I probably made some mistakes because I said, boy, if being a leader means this kind of style, and I just really couldn't pull it off. And so I think the first is know your, especially for those that are younger in their career,
Mhm.
know your personality, be true to it, and then shape your leadership style around that. And I think, frankly, there isn't one leadership style that makes for an effective leader.
Right.
If you look at all of us, we have different strengths, weaknesses, styles, and I have seen effective leaders with kind of all different styles and
Mm.
working on adapting your style to what your personality is and building on those strengths. I
Yeah.
think it's important rather than trying to be something you're not.
Yeah, no, I think that's really well said, and I would just agree as I've observed you and your leadership over the years, you have definitely just been yourself, and you haven't tried to be something you're not. People know when you're genuine. They know when you're being real. They know when you're putting on an act, and that's not the case for you for sure. You are genuine in your leadership and your style and your approach to people and relationships, which is to me one of the important qualities of a good leader that I've learned from you is that you really connected with your team, with your people, just being who you are. You said you're a Midwesterner that comes through, but it serves you well and has served you well for 35 plus years in leadership.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I would add to that, what that may mean in your career is part of that is then is to find an organization
Mm,
that supports that. And so if let's say you're interviewing for jobs, make sure you look at the culture of that organization and say, does that fit with me? Maybe prestigious organization or maybe a great job, but if you walk away from an interview or discussion and say, boy, that's not me. That's just the really good people, but don't match. You probably won't be successful because again, you're going to have to be someone you're not. So, depending on where everybody is in their career, I just think if I look back at who's been successful even in our organization and who's not, it's not based on who has skills or technical abilities. Did they fit the culture or
yeah.
not? And so that's an important thing as you discern, where you're going to spend your career.
Yeah. No, it's really important. And you certainly set a culture there at Munson, but you've also given room for people of different backgrounds and people with different styles to be in leadership there and to grow there. And I'm a good case in point of that. You and I are very different in the way we lead, but we have a lot in common. And you provide for many leaders space and room for them to be themselves, but also to you set a tone, you set a culture that allows people to know sort of how to lead in that environment. And I think that is one of the real strengths that you have.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. And I think some of this is, again, we all have different personalities. I think
Yeah.
on your team, there's going to be some core things that are non-negotiable, right? And that is
Yes.
how you treat each other, how you treat your employees, how you deal with the community, how you deal with all your different constituents. I think we have to hold some standards that are non-negotiable with our team.
Yeah.
However, how you do that in each individual, we're going to do differently. And
Sure.
you have to embrace that. I think you raise a good point is I've also seen leaders make a mistake to say, boy, they're going to hire people that everyone's exactly like they are.
Mhm.
First of all, that would be hard. But second is, I think when you're making tough decisions, you want some diversity of opinion and perspective, right? So I think a good leader will listen to those perspectives and someone may have a different background, experience, or personality and say, I don't agree with kind of the direction we're going and here's why.
Yeah.
We need to be able to have that discussion as a team and then end up with whatever decision we want. So I think diversity of personality, background, experience is really good. Listen, if everybody was a finance person, boy, I'm not sure you'd have balanced decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely exemplify that, allowing for a broad array of different types of leaders and input. And so as a result, I think you get to the best decisions for
Yeah.
the organization. So let me ask you another quick question around leadership before we get to a fun question. But Maybe the most important leadership advice that you received over the course of your career early on or whenever, or that you follow today?
Yeah, I think it probably is advice given some to an area that I probably made some mistakes on early in my career, and that is holding people accountable. Accountability is really important. I think by my natural style, I have faith that people will improve and get, if that person just had the right coaching or if they were just supported, they would get to be in a better place as a leader. And many times that happens, but sometimes it just isn't the right fit for
Mhm.
whatever reason. And I think recognizing that and then dealing with that through accountability and the advice I have gotten from, whether it's board members or other peers to say, maybe you should held that person more accountable and dealt with that, even if that means moving them out of the organization
Mhm.
rather than hoping through counseling and coaching that they will approve when you probably knew earlier on that it just wasn't a good fit.
Yeah, and maybe that's some of the hardest work that a leader has to do, some of the hardest decisions and conversations that you have to have. And I know for me, that's one of the harder things that I've had to do over the course of my career. But you're really not doing yourself, and
No,
especially not doing that person any favors by avoiding the reality of how it's going, how they're doing, what the fit is, et cetera. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. Accountability, maybe one of the harder things that a leader has
it
to.
is, but in the end, it comes back to get you if you don't deal with
Yeah.
it. And how many times, I can think the mistake I've made is if you look back and said, "Boy, I probably should have dealt with that a little bit
Mhm.
earlier,
Yeah,
and we would have been in a better shape as a team." And those are hard, but that's our job as leaders to make those hard decisions.
for sure, for sure. Well, let's have a little fun with, what's your favorite leadership or leader character, maybe in a movie or a TV series, and why?
Ted Lasso. Now, I don't know, Al, if you've seen Ted
Oh, I've
Lasso,
seen that series. I've watched it twice. Probably gonna watch it again as before the 4th season comes out. I love it.
but it's not what you would that you're not going to read about that in a book. But if you think
Mhm.
about the message of that show for those of you who have seen, and if you haven't, I really would recommend
Yeah, I
that you
agree.
see it,
It's the
not as
best.
a leadership show, but just as a feel good show.
But it is a leadership show in a lot of ways.
It is, and there's actually now a book out that there's a book or that said everything you needed to know about being a good person you learned in kindergarten. There's
Yes.
something about everything you need to know about life you can learn from Ted Lasso. So nobody go quite that far. But if you think about it, so what were the things that made him a good coach in this
Yeah.
case, which is coach is a leader? One is he was curious.
Mm.
And so if the premise of the story, who don't know, is this is a guy that was a football coach in some kind of college program in middle part of the country, Kansas maybe, and was
Mhm.
hired to come over and coach a soccer team in England and really knew nothing about it. And so there's lots of fun parts about it. But what he didn't do is pretend he knew everything. So he was curious. Why do people do that? Or why does this person act? And even though there were some adversaries in this show, it's like there is in life, he was trying to seek to understand rather than being a judgmental. So the first thing
Mm.
was be curious. The second, as we've talked about before, be authentic. He was not the same as these other soccer coaches, but he was who he was. And in the beginning, he probably got some pushback for that. But in the end, I think people came to appreciate his team, the owners of the team, and the kind of his constituents that he was who he was. And that's what made him so effective.
Mm.
And then I think he was, as we've talked about, a humble leader. He was not about the ego. He was about getting the best out of his players, no different than we get the best out of the people on our team, which in the end, after you get to season 3, he's very successful. He leads this soccer team in a turnaround from kind of being in last place to, at the top of the standings. So it's hokey and it's kind of fun. But I think if you kind of pay attention, there's some things in there that we can all learn from.
Yeah, absolutely. I was not expecting that one.
Yeah.
That was a good one. I mean, I typically think of leaders like, Braveheart and Gladiator and those kind of people. But, I'm glad you brought Ted Lasso up because, yes, he was curious. But one of the other things that strikes me is he genuinely cared about people and he was positive. I mean, and he got ripped and he got, a lot of detractors and a lot of failure along the way. But he just always stayed true to himself, as you said. and was somebody that in the end people loved being around. But he was consistent and he did lead. He led that team effectively despite not having all the technical knowledge and background. It's a good example for us. You know, it's not always all about our technical knowledge and experience, but it's about the people, the relationships, being genuine and curious, as you said. And so he is a great example of leadership.
Well, and you think about it, the other uh, thing that he did, and we've talked about, was empowering his people. And,
Yeah.
for, I don't remember what season it was, but there was a equipment manager,
Nate.
Nate, that's right. Nate, who was he was an equipment manager, but I think had a natural ability, talent for
Hmm.
understanding how soccer
Yeah.
worked. And there was some big game where he took his idea of a play or a strategy and
Yeah.
it worked. And Nate went on to coach in an opposing team. But here was somebody who kind of looked at the unlikely person, which was the equipment manager, and said, I trust you enough to put in this important play. Because he recognized there might be something there. We all have those people on our team that, they might not be in a vice president position, but maybe there's someone at a different level of leadership that has great potential, and there's something to giving them a chance to thrive, even though they're an unlikely hero.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great leadership example and seeing people for the potential that they have, even though they might not have all the requisite education and training and pedigree, but you can find leadership really in a lot of places if you're really, as Ted was, curious and humble and really believe in the people around you. So I think you do that well. You gave me a lot of opportunities along the way, which probably I didn't deserve, but I appreciate. So let's close it with one thought maybe on leadership that you'd like to leave with the audience.
Maybe here's what I would say: it's not about you. And sometimes I think we're leaders, and this maybe is my Midwestern style, is I think where leaders make it about them rather than the organization or the team. I think that can run into barriers. If you remember, what is important is the success of the team or the organization or the outcomes or what you're doing for your patients in case of a
Yeah.
hospital.
Right.
It's not about Ed. And, I think we're all trying to build a career and we're all trying to have success. That will come. And so less about making it about you and more about the team. And if that means giving others credit, which I really think is important, is, if someone, even at a board meeting, if that means somebody else makes the presentation,
Mm.
that gives them a chance to shine and to build them up as leaders. In the end, people know if that person reports to you, they know who did it. I mean, or they know who
Yep.
supported them. So
Right.
it's not about you. And the second thing is, I would say, is lead by example. People watch what you do.
Yeah.
So it's not what you say in a nice speech, or it's not what you have in a policy, what you do. So, for example, if you say leadership rounding is important,
Yeah.
and Al, you did a very nice job with that, you can say it all you want. But if they don't see you out there, or they don't see you talking to the employees in the food service department or the environmental services department, they'd say, well, he doesn't mean it. If you say you expect a certain culture of the way we treat each other, and then you're a jerk in a meeting, to say
Yeah.
she or he, you really don't mean it. So, I think it kind of the same thing, but it's just about and some of the same traits, the humility, and it's not about you, and lead by example, because people don't listen to what they say, what we say. They listen to watch what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons that you've had such success and longevity at Munson. I think you're going on year 26, maybe, or
Yep.
27 there. That doesn't just happen by accident. It happens because you are yourself. You do lead by example. And I can't agree more, especially the leading by example. Sometimes when we're in leadership positions, we think we should just tell everybody else what to do, but you're right. Everyone's watching you. As a leader, I often feel like we're in a fishbowl and we don't always realize it. And it's not just at work, and especially in small towns. It's when you're out to
Yep.
dinner. It's when you're in the community. It's when you're serving on a board. Whatever you're doing, be the consistent person that you are and that you want to be as a leader. You can't put it on and take it off. And I think that's something that's been very true for you as a leader for 26 or 7 years there at Munson. So congrats on that longevity and
Thank you.
the great success there. So, well, thanks, Ed. It's been great to catch up with you again. I've enjoyed it, and all the best to you and to Munson, and we'll see you along the way. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks to everyone for listening, and hope you'll have a great journey.
Very good. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Leadership is rarely simple and it's rarely easy. And that's exactly why it matters. My hope is that something from today's conversation gave you a moment to pause, reflect, or see your leadership in a new way. Until next time, lead well.